In early December, we were treated to the wild and new Forsaken Hollows DLC for Elden Ring Nightreign, and my addiction has likely become incurable. From Software DLC always seems to carry this magical, mystical nature to it that is separate from the base game experience. In Nightreign's case, it's provided us with 2 new Nightfarers, 2 new Nightlords, a 5th Shifting Earth event, which is just a new map outright, and new ways to customize and build craft our favorite characters. While all of that is impressive, what I find to be the most notable element is just how captivating the DLC itself truly is. Why? Well, we gotta start from the top, which is... The 2 new additions to the Nightfarer lineup are the Scholar and the Undertaker. The former is a mixture of support and DPS depending how you build him, while the latter is essentially Nightreign's take on a Berserker archetype. Scholar is a curious case because his toolset rivals, if not surpasses, the level of versatility other Nightfarers like Wilder or Duchess provide. Prior to the DLC, I always held the opinion that the sibling duo had the most room for build diversity amongst the cast, even without the stat swap relics introduced with Deep of Night. But now, Scholar is absolutely in that conversation. Undertaker is, as I said, a Berserker type of class. While her stats lean towards strength and faith, her character skill is the main draw for her in my opinion, allowing her to boast her attack power, damage negation, and poise substantially. Then, with how much she can spam her ultimate attack in multiplayer, Undertaker really is an unrelenting machine who has, frankly, way more going for her than I imagined prior to release. As of this writing, I do not know for certain how these characters will progress within the meta of Nightreign. I know plenty firmly believe them to be very strong characters, and while I think so too, I do see it as a bit early to confidently say how much. But that is the fun of discussion. I will not be doing a full breakdown of either newly added Nightfarer here beyond simply stating that, yeah, they are really good fun. What I would rather discuss more in depth is the new map that this DLC grants us access to, the Great Hollow, and how much of a welcome treat it is. When I say that the Forsaken Hollows DLC is captivating, this is a large part as to why. This landscape, the colors, the atmosphere, the energy of the Great Hollow is nigh perfection. We'll get to gameplay jabber in a sec, but really, just take in the whole vibe of this place. The word best used to describe this setting is ethereal. In true From Software fashion, this location is not an inviting place necessarily, yet it pulls you in with an oddly specific sense of wonder that Nightreign's source did, Elden Ring. The music too, of course, does a lot of lifting, I find. Presentation-wise, I believe the Great Hollow is probably amongst From's best, and really boasts just how strong Elden Ring's art direction is. As for gameplay, well, this is where things become a bit more contentious amongst folks. A lot of people, at least in my own experience, find this map to be very confusing and easy to get lost in. And at first, I was one of those people too. And that is such an amazing feeling to me. Listen, I'm somebody who has a lot of hours in this game. My previous video highlighting reasons why I'm addicted to it, check it out later if you want. So let me say how refreshing the Great Hollow is as a new map to explore and find goodies in. At first, the map doesn't appear to be as large as Limveld, but really looking at the in-game map doesn't show the sheer verticality of it. And this is how the two maps greatly differ from one another. Limveld in its natural state is kinda flat? Obviously there's cliff sides to scale, higher areas to reach, and these elements are only further punctuated by the various shifting earth events. but the Great Hollow is its own crazy beast. Now, technically the Great Hollow is a Shifting Earth event, but it is very much a brand new map for us to explore. In the beginning, I felt conflicted on how easy it is to get lost and how, humorously might I add, it is to fall into the abyss. Yet, I was brimmed with excitement, already doing mental checks on how to improve routing next run, taking note of where merchants appear, boss spawns, spectral hawk points, and most importantly, the location of all these crystals. See, my friend group and I, when we first played the DLC, ended up in one of the two castle locations on our first ever attempt at this new map, at level 3, with our HP halved. Of course, we were completely blind on what to do, not the slightest idea of a method to breaking the curse over this spot, but we endured anyway. Not only managing to defeat a red Deathrite bird without getting team wiped, but overcoming the entire expedition and our hand at the Balancer's Nightlord boss on our extremely messy first attempt. It was exhilarating. Was it as challenging as the deepest depths of Deep of Night? No, certainly not. But it felt all the more thrilling due to the unfamiliarity of it all. Traversing through this new location with the pressure of time on us, at half of our Nightfarer's natural toughness, and working together as a team, giving each other weapon passives best suited to our specific Nightfarer who could most easily make use of it, to facing enemies new to Nightreign's gameplay flow. Sure, we each played a ton of Shadow of the Erdtree and thus have fought these enemies numerous times, but here, with the differences the Nightfarers bring to approaching said enemy movesets, the constant pressure of time and thus trying to dispatch of them quickly and adjusting to how certain attacks behave when you aren't the player being targeted, it was a feeling that I had long since missed from this game upon release, let me tell ya. Alright, back to those crystals, yeah? These boys are this map's big thing. The normal Limveld map has constants within it, those being the mine locations, Everjails, and Central Castle. No matter what, barring shifting Earths, those will always be a reliable certainty on a standard map. Well, in the Great Hollow, you can kiss Everjails goodbye. None of that anymore. Make a new relic setup for the DLC because that buff isn't helping you here. Instead, the Night Invader relic effect is probably okay from what I can tell. There's usually at least one invasion site on the map in my experience. Granted, I don't know how effective this is myself, but it may be worth testing. See, here I am theory crafting mid-video script. Right, okay, the crystals. The crystals are vital, as they allow you to access the central, giant crystal smack in the middle of the map. This grants you a power-up, which allows you to enter these locations, which would otherwise have your HP. There are 2 castle sections and 2 towers to scale on the opposing sides of the map. As far as I can tell, the towers are roughly the same in what they do, but can have differing effects active, which we'll go over shortly, and the castle-like structures differ in both layout and what you can expect there. For example, the one that resides northern of the map has a hidden boss you can find by destroying a seal, giving you what would be a central castle equivalent boss to fight, red eyes and all. Whereas the other castle has more twists and turns in its layout and sporting more mini-bosses from what I can tell. Both castles also have a chance for an event to occur where a red-colored boss from Deep of Night will appear on the rooftop. These will actually drop red rarity weapons from said mode, sporting 2 positive effects and 1 negative. I'm not entirely sure which castle provides the most reward, but both are very fun to explore through and clear. What I find most impressive about these 2 castle areas is how they are larger than the main center castle from the main Limveld map. Each have a unique layout and encounter types. The northern castle even has an entrance to one of the mine locations, bridging more possible interests depending on your weapons, and if it's worth going for a smithing 2. Speaking of smithing 2s, this brings me to how in the DLC, FromSoft wanted to spice up the usual strategies a lot of players were often employing in the normal map. Routes being made around Everjails and taking a pit stop to the mines are very prevalent, and for good reasons. Both provide good sources of powering up your character and buffing up a good weapon. Now, in the Great Hollow, like I said earlier, the Everjail relic is useless. And while there are 2 mine locations on this map, both are rather out of the way compared to the Limveld map. The only time I really go to the mines is if I spawn at the upper rightmost location on the map, which is right next to one of the mine locations for that wonderful smithing too. I quite like this, as it either removes a comfort blanket that players may have altogether, or makes a power condition more tricky to obtain than normal, forcing us to think more on our feet or reevaluate game plans. Combine this with the far more treacherous layout of the map, and I cannot help myself but feel more compelled by the Great Hollow itself. Verticality is the name of the game here with this map, and to be quite honest, those of us who played Dark Souls 1 shouldn't be surprised in the slightest. A good area to get familiar with quickly is right at the very center of the map. This section is great because, more often than not, churches and crystals can spawn around here, alongside reliabilities you can count on such as boss locations and a colleague to go to for possible upgrades or to buy something. Ideally, what you would want to be doing for day 1 is crystal hunting while you take on bosses along the route you decide to go with. 4 crystals are required to shatter the giant gem, which enables the power-up for the Nightfarers to enter the castles and towers unhindered by the HP loss, which are easily the locations that provide the largest rewards. So, if you can open this option up prior to even day 2, you'll be at an incredible pace. Alright, I keep mentioning these towers, but haven't properly talked about them, so these towers are boss rushes, each one having a random curse over it that impacts both you and the enemies you'll be facing. This is really cool. Both the player and bosses could have a buff to holy damage, for example, and depending on what bosses you encounter alongside your own equipment, could make such encounters significantly easier or harder. I've had times where Frostbite was buffed, which fit my relic build beautifully as I was running the Chilling Mist skill on my starting weapon, while also having a Rivers of Blood in my offhand to reset the frost procs. When I say I was getting frost like a mad lad, believe me, I was. The curses can also be something like continuous HP drain or regen, the former being rather devastating if your only damage negation buffs are negation of full HP, while the latter, despite sounding good, may very well make the bosses consume more of your precious time due to them also regaining the health as you do. It creates a variance in scenarios and how you may need to approach a given encounter, sometimes even the same encounter but under a differing circumstance. What has been an interesting case for me personally is how options like the mines and rises aren't as reliable or worth it to do in the DLC, and considering I am a Duchess main, the primary hybrid character between melee and spells, it's made me rethink what my plans are more often than not, which is very refreshing and welcomed, honestly. That said, I usually just run a solid double status setup for my starting dagger, and it's enough to truck me along for most of the run if things are dire. This map is also home to plenty of secrets, such as the weapon dupe location. This is always on the map, regardless of what is stationed at this grand church, and can be fantastic if someone on the team got either a super good weapon or an amazing passive. Sharing is caring, right? So, making a pit stop here to get the team buffed up with something strong, especially early on, can seriously help in making everyone snowball faster. What also helps is that there is a spectral hawk tree just outside of this location, making getting from it to the center of the map a breeze, including getting the crystal power up if already obtainable. This leads to another constant that I want to highlight here, which I failed to in my last video. the spirit trees. The spectral hawks are so good on this map, to the point where I basically utilize them in every run I do in the Great Hollow. These magical birds can save you precious seconds, so please use them more if you haven't already. Something else to keep note of are the Super Kale locations, aka Township Merchants. In the Great Hollow, he's represented by this golden icon for the merchants, and he sells very similar stock as the main map. However, sometimes you may notice that there are two of these icons on the map. And that's because it's possible to find two Super Kales, and the second one will sell you legendary weapons, which is absolutely insane, honestly. I have only seen him once, and unfortunately did not get footage of it, but he's out there. He's out there. Alright, last bit I want to go over are the new bosses, and holy are these insane. Firstly, yeah, Artorias is awesome. By far the best Night 2 boss in the game. I always have an absolute blast fighting him. Likewise with Moog 2, which is one of my favorite fights in Elden Ring, so him getting a Nightreign, I was thrilled to see him here, let me tell you. We also got Demon Princes as a Night 1 and 2 boss, still functioning the same way as it did in Dark Souls 3, which is a very cool touch. And the new Night 1 bosses are fine. The least interesting are the Rune Bears, like, sure, whatever, bro. Death Knights are pretty cool, they're scary, but not overly tanky. Curseblade and Divine Lion Warrior especially still strike fear in me because of Shadow of the Erdtree. They're still doing their job correctly, I guess. And of course, the two new Night Lords, the Balancers and Dreadlord. Balancers, I probably have a hot take here, but they're okay in my opinion. I'm never really a fan of gank fights, and I don't think it quite hits the highs of Ornstein and Smo from Dark Souls, nor Demon Princes proper from Dark Souls 3. Perhaps I just need more time to learn the fight better, but as it stands, I think it's a fine fight, but not exactly one I'm itching to replay again and again. Dreadlord, however, oh man, what a fight. Yeah, I don't really like the add-ons that are in the second half of Phase 1, but they do serve their purpose, and they do attack you less frequently than what it could be, and they are there as a way to power up Dreadlords that add some more tension to the fight. But once Phase 2 kicks in though, oh lordy lord, it's amazing. One of the best bosses in the game by far. I really like this fight. And of course, the music for both of the new Night Lords are absolutely stellar, which comes as a shock to no one. Speaking of shocks though, what do you mean we got an Everdark version of Balancers right as I was in the middle of scripting? This fight is, well, for one, it's something straight out of Berserk. Two, it's true chaos. Utterly insane boss fight. My goodness. And that is why I find the DLC to Nightreign to be captivating. It spices up what we've come to expect from Nightreign in general, adding new elements and considerations to runs, and most importantly, giving players another immersive and memorable experience. The fact this is only $15 is wild to me, as it's already given me enough reason to continue playing Nightreign for a while yet to come. And while yes, I know plenty of people are disappointed that we didn't get Shadow of the Erdtree weapons, I didn't really expect them to do so, and they never advertised that we were. At least I don't recall them saying we were going to get new weapons included in the DLC, so it doesn't bother me too much myself. And that just about wraps it up. Thank y'all for staying until the end. If you enjoy content like this from me, please do consider hitting that like button and mayhap subbing. It truly does help me get more in favor with the almighty algorithm, and I do plan on making more Nightreign content in the near future. And probably videos on other Souls games too. Until the next video though, I have been Saving Termina, and I wish y'all a good one. Adios.